So a slightly different example here, where we've got a slightly larger data set, and as you'll see, there are no distinct numbers that represent the quartiles. But before we can make that decision, we need to write our data set in ascending order. So the smallest values we have here are 3s, so we can cross them off. Those will be the first two values in our ordered data set. Then we've got a couple of 4s, so crossing those off shows us that we've got 5 left to deal with, a 6, and then it's an 8, followed by that 9 at the end. So data sets in order. Little calculation at the side to find the position of the median. In this case, the median, which is also known as quartile 2. The median is at position, and how do we calculate the position? We use this little formula, n plus 1 over 2, gives us the position of the median. In this case, n was 8, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items. 8 plus 1 is 9, 9 over 2, 4.5, so our median, which will become quartile 2, is at position 4.5. If you have a look here, position 1, 2, 3, 4 is at position 5. So like we saw in an earlier example, the median is actually halfway between these two items. Then we can look at the bottom half of the data set. There are 4 items in it. If you want, you can use this little n plus 1 over 2 thing again, because 4 plus 1 is 5, and half of that's 2.5, which means the median here is at position 2.5. That's position 2, that'll be 3, so 2.5 is actually halfway between these two items. And then we're going to look at the top half of the data. 4 items again, obviously there would be, because 4 in either half. And again, the median will be 1 to 2.5, so it'll be halfway between these two. So no distinct data items standing out as any of the quartiles. We'll have to find halfway between each of these values. Now halfway between 3 and 4 is obviously 3.5, but a good way of finding halfway between any two numbers is to add them together and then divide them by 2, and effectively you're finding the mean of those two numbers. So 3 and 4 is 7, and half of that is 3.5, so quartile 1 is 3.5. Quartile 2, which is also known as the median, is halfway between 4 and 5. Now, you probably can tell that that's 4.5, but if you add those two together, they get 9, and then divide that by 2, you'll see you get 4.5 for quartile 2. And then finally here, halfway between 6 and 8 is 7, of course. But if you add 6 and 8 together, that makes 14, and half of 14 is 7, so it's a little robust formula that will always work. We'll see in a later example why adding them together and halving them is actually really helpful. But for this example, halfway between 6 and 8 gives us quartile 3, which is 7.